adopted. The unfinished. Without objection, the question to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is a question on adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 17, which the Chair will put de novo. The Clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 17, concurrent resolution providing for an adjournment or recess of the two houses.
The question is on adoption of the concurrent resolution. As many as are in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
The gentleman asked for the recorded vote. Was requested. Those in favor of recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having arisen, a recorded vote is ordered. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The U.S. House, the last vote in this series on their adjournment resolution, setting the stage for their next week, their district week period following President's Day. The Senate will be out too. But ahead in the U.S. House, an hour of general debate and lots of amendments. 400 amendments have been filed on this spending plan for the remainder of fiscal year 2011. The plan providing for over $1 trillion in general funds through this budget year. That's more than $60 billion less than the previous year, 2010, and $100 billion less than what the President had proposed for fiscal year 2011. So an hour of general debate ahead and lots of amendments ahead, too, with debate likely to take the House through Thursday of this week.
On this vote, the yeas are 243, the nays are 176, and the concurrent resolution is adopted, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks on H.R. 1 and insert extraneous material thereon.
Without objection, so ordered. Pursuant to House Resolution 92 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 1. The Chair appoints the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Lucas, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 1, which the Clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for the Department of Defense and other departments and agencies of the government for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2011, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers, and the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Dix, each will control 30 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself such time as I may consume. But could we have order, Mr. Chairman?
The gentleman is correct. The chamber will come to order. The chamber will come to order so that we may proceed. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
The continuing resolution on the floor today represents the largest reduction in non-security discretionary spending in the history of the nation. It funds the federal government for the remainder of the 2011 fiscal year. But most importantly, Mr. Chairman, it answers taxpayers' calls to right our nation's fiscal ship, making specific, substantive, and comprehensive spending reductions, cutting more than $100 billion compared with the President's fiscal 11 budget request. This CR reverses a trend of out-of-control Democrat spending over the last 2 years that has increased overall discretionary funding, including stimulus, by 84% in 2 years. Never before has Congress undertaken a task of this magnitude, but never before have we been faced with a deficit crisis of this scale. The government is borrowing over 40 cents of every dollar that it spends. Our constituents sent us a clear, decisive message in the last election. They want government to spend less, stop undue interference in American lives and businesses, and take action to create jobs and get our economy moving again. Through the Republican Pledge to America, we made the commitment to do just that. And today, we offer the first step in fulfilling these promises by presenting a spending package to the American people that makes deep but manageable cuts in nearly every area of the government. This bill is about shared commitments and shared sacrifice. Make no mistake, these cuts will not be easy, and they will affect every congressional district, but they are necessary and long overdue. Although we recognize that every dollar we cut has a constituency of support, an association, an industry, individual citizens who will disagree with our decision. These cuts are the necessary, difficult work by our subcommittees to make the smartest and fairest reductions possible. No stones were left unturned. No programs were held sacred. The Appropriations Committee went line by line to craft a responsible, judicious CR, one that will allow our economy to thrive, our businesses to create jobs, and our national security to be strengthened. Our subcommittees scoured the budget for wasteful activities and cleaned out excessive and unnecessary spending while prioritizing the most essential and effective programs, including $460 million for accelerating the process through which veterans resolve their health care claims, and an additional $13 million for increased oversight of the Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP. The CR includes absolutely no earmark funding and eliminates all previous earmark funding from fiscal year 2010, saving taxpayers approximately $8.5 billion. Furthermore, it includes a provision to eliminate any unobligated stimulus funding approved in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, another $5 billion of taxpayer dollars saved. As we help put our nation's budget back into balance, we're finding real savings that are justifiable to the American people and that will stop the dangerous spiral of unsustainable and irresponsible deficits. In addition, this CR is only the first of many appropriations bills this year that will significantly trim federal spending. It's hard and fast proof that we are serious about returning our nation to a sustainable financial and fiscal path. However, so that we can continue the important work of reducing spending in our regular budgetary work for this year, the House, Senate, and White House must come together to complete this process before March 4, when our current funding measure expires. It is critically important that the House move this CR to avoid a government shutdown and get these spending cuts passed by the House over to the Senate and let them act their will to avoid a shutdown, and then get the bill to the President. The American people expect no less. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves the balance of his time. Does the gentleman from Washington State seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself 5 minutes.
The gentleman from Washington State yields himself 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, it is clear that a debt crisis is looming. There is no denying that we need a comprehensive plan to reduce the debt over the long term. What the majority offers instead in this bill is a one-dimensional focus on the smallest segment of spending in the federal budget. We believe that at this time we should be putting everything on the table: discretionary spending, entitlements, and taxes. Without a more comprehensive approach to this debt crisis, we cannot effectively change the trajectory and begin to bring our public debt downward. Without a more comprehensive budgetary approach, what we would be offering to the American people would be what Alan Simpson has called a sparrow's belch in the midst of a typhoon. As we address the debt crisis, it is fundamental that we should first do no harm to the fragile economic recovery. Here I'm just echoing what many others have said. As the Bipartisan Fiscal Commission put it, in order to avoid shocking the fragile economy, the Commission recommends waiting until 2012 to begin enacting programmatic spending cuts and waiting until fiscal year 2013 before making large nominal cuts. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, in his testimony last week to the House Budget Committee, said, "To the extent you can change programs that will have long-term effects on spending and revenues, that will be more effective and credible program than one that focuses only on the current fiscal year." Right away, to do this doesn't put too much, and make sure you don't put too much pressure on the ongoing recovery. As the Democratic leader just said, there is a recent analysis done by the Economic Policy Institute that says a full $100 billion cut to discretionary spending would likely result in job losses on the order of 994,000 using OMB's GDP projections, and CBO projections are based on current law and assuming a fiscal multiplier of 1.5%. And so this is a very serious matter. And we Democrats support dealing with waste, fraud, and abuse. We want to see a program. I personally support President Obama's 5-year freeze on domestic spending with puts and takes because it doesn't cut as much in the first year. This is all about timing. And I recognize that my colleagues over on this side of the aisle, they believe and think that what they're doing is going to have a positive economic effect, and that this will somehow create economic activity and lower the deficit, lower unemployment. I hope and pray they're right, because if what I think and most economists, reputable economists, think is true, this will have a negative effect and hurt the economy and hurt the people that are out there who are unemployed. So I think we need to think about this very, very carefully. And the cuts of this magnitude, as the chairman said, have never been done before. We are in uncharted waters. And we all recognize that we have to have a plan for the deficit. But the plan has to include entitlements, has to include taxes. I mean, discretionary spending is 1/3 of the budget. You could cut and cut and cut, and you're still not going to solve the problem. So hopefully we can do what we did in the 80s with Tip O'Neill and Bob Dole, and that is have a bipartisan approach like they're doing in the Senate today, where Democrats and Republicans get together and work on all of these issues and come up with a credible plan. That is the way to do this. And I see my good friend Mr. Young from Florida. I just want to say that I have enjoyed working with him for over 30 years, and I strongly support the defense part of this bill. The defense part of this bill has been worked out on a bipartisan basis by the Defense Subcommittee. It does make reductions in spending, but it does it in a very careful and professional way. And I want to commend the gentleman from Florida for his leadership over the years on national security issues. And I yield back. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I yield 3 minutes to the chairman of the Republican conference in the House, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hensarling.
The gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Chairman, if we want to have jobs today, if we want to protect our children from bankruptcy tomorrow, we've got to quit spending money we don't have. There is a debt crisis in America, and it is spending-driven, being led by the President and our friends from the other side of the aisle. It is a true crisis. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, has said the biggest threat we have to our national security is our debt. One of these reputable economists that the previous gentleman spoke about, Robert Samuelson, has said this spending could trigger an economic and political death spiral. Democrat Erskine Bowles, who headed up the President's Fiscal Responsibility Commission, said the debt is like a cancer. It's truly going to destroy the country from within. And what do we have, Mr. Chairman? We have the President presenting a new budget that will again double the national debt in 5 years, triple it in 10, add $13 trillion worth of red ink to the nation's debt. This is after expanding garden variety government 84% in 2 years, non-defense discretionary. Mr. Chairman, you can't spend money you don't have. Massive debts lead to massive tax increases. Massive tax increases lead to no jobs. The chairman of the Federal Reserve has said one of the best ways that we can improve jobs today is to put our nation on a sustainable fiscal course. And I heard the gentleman say that entitlement spending should be on the table. Clearly, the president hasn't got the message. It's not what we saw in his budget. We haven't seen it in any other Democrat budget. So it would be wonderful if we saw it, but we don't see it. You know, I talk to business people in my own district, Mr. Chairman, like Diane Ford of Kaufman, Texas, a small business lady. When she stares in the face of this debt and she sees the tax increase, she writes, "Congressman, I couldn't hire any more employees. I couldn't expand my business. I would definitely have to close up shop. As a small business owner, I am afraid of my future." Small business people all around the nation know that massive debt leads to massive tax increases. It leads to no jobs. If we want to create jobs, we have to take care of this debt. And think about future generations, Mr. Chairman. I heard from one of my other constituents who said, "I've never felt so embarrassed and ashamed about anything I've done in my life as I do about leaving this mess in the laps of Tyler and Caitlin, my precious grandkids." He's talking about the national debt. To protect future generations, to create jobs today, we've got to quit spending money we don't have, and I want to congratulate the chairman of the Appropriations Committee for his excellent work in turning the corner. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlemen seek recognition.
I yield 3 minutes to Mr. Moran of Virginia, the ranking member of the Interior and Environment Appropriations Subcommittee.
The gentleman yields 3 minutes.
I give him 4 minutes.
4 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've been on the Appropriations Committee for 17 years. 11 of them were under Republican control, 8 under a Republican president. And I'm proud of the investments that we've made in this country during those 17 years. We are a stronger, more secure, more productive economy as a result of those investments. We've improved the lives of Americans. We've cleaned up our water. We've invested in transportation, our national defense, our education system. That's why we have the strongest economy and, in fact, continue to be the very best place on the planet to live and work and provide a better future for our children. Now, what we're doing in this continuing resolution is to target those programs that are called domestic discretionary. They represent about 4.5% of the entire budget. And they've stayed pretty well even during the Reagan administration, during the Clinton administration, during the Bush administration, when we had the lowest job growth ever. They were at about 7.5%. But the fact is that we are not going to balance our budget by targeting that small amount of the budget. The reality is that when President Reagan left office, tax receipts were about 18.2%. They went up a bit during the Clinton administration when we had the greatest expansion ever, and in fact, people at the highest rate of income tax pocketed more money after taxes than in any time in American history. But right now, they're at 14.9% of GDP. I would say, Mr. Chairman, suggest that the problem is not one of not investing enough in our country. It's the revenue that we're bringing in being grossly inadequate. And in the historical context, we can prove that to be the case. When revenue goes down that low, our economy shrinks, and it becomes a self-defeating cycle. Now, in the Interior and the Environment Appropriations Bill, some of the things we do is to take out the program that uses offshore oil revenues for Land and Water Conservation Fund. That protects our nation's precious lands. We're going to dramatically cut construction and maintenance at our national parks, refuges, and forests. We're going to take the money away from the governors and mayors throughout the country for the plumbing that goes underneath our land, what's called the Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water Revolving Fund. That's money they desperately need to ensure the public's health. We take it for granted. We won't take it for granted anymore if we stop those grants. Now, this bill will not create a single new job. And in fact, we estimate it will cut about 800,000 jobs, both public and private. That's not worthy of this Congress on either side of the aisle to be cutting jobs. What we need to be doing is investing in jobs, investing in education, making sure that children that have been born in social and economic conditions that make it particularly difficult have access to Head Start. Don't cut $1 billion out of Head Start. Don't cut kindergarten through 12 education, which is the seed corn of our future. Those aren't investments. Those are arbitrary cuts. And that's not what we have been about, and that's not how we enable this country to be as strong and as great as it is. I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that when we do our budget analysis, it should be done with a scalpel, like a surgeon would approach it, not with a meat axe. And we should respect all of the good work that the appropriations committees have done over the years in making this a better country as a result. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I yield 4 minutes to the immediate past chairman of the committee, now chairman emeritus of the committee, gentleman from California, Mr. Lewis.
The gentleman is yielded from California for 4 minutes.
I very much appreciate my colleague, the chairman, yielding. And, Mr. Chairman, some of my colleagues say they are shocked at the spending reductions we have proposed here. No one should be surprised. For the past several years, Congress and the administration have been spending like there's no tomorrow. Since FY08, we have increased non-security discretionary spending by almost 25%. In some areas, it has jumped nearly a third in 2 years. Those were historic spending increases, and they don't even include the $800 billion that was in the massive failed stimulus package. That was such a huge amount of money, some agencies still have not been able to spend it 2 years later. Well, my colleagues, tomorrow is here. The bill is coming due, and if we do not find a way to stop spending, we are headed towards fiscal disaster. This absolutely should surprise no one. Republicans on the Appropriations Committee have been warning for 2 years that we cannot continue spending this way. We tried to stop it, to at least slow it down. But for the past 2 years, we have not even been able to get an amendment to change the direction of our spendthrift ways. So now we are faced with record deficits. The President's budget predicts an all-time high of $1.65 trillion in red ink next year. We have been warned that the federal debt limitation of $14 trillion must be increased. Within a decade, our federal debt could equal more than 70% of our GDP. Without question, this kind of spending is going to run our federal budget off a cliff, and it will do more harm to our economy than we've seen from the current terrible recession. At least a third of our national debt is owned by foreign nations and investors. What will they do if we cannot begin to pay it down? Last year, we paid nearly $415 billion in interest on our national debt. That is more than we spent on any discretionary government program other than defense. That is hundreds of billions of dollars not being spent to create jobs, not being spent to fix our roads, not being spent to secure our nation. And it will continue to grow at an ever faster rate as long as we keep running up these huge deficits. The American people told us last November that it's time to stop. They were alarmed enough to raise questions all over the country. They indeed at the polls indicated that we needed to find a new direction. They want fiscal sanity. They want us to stop spending now before it is too late. The spending reductions in this package are extremely painful. The cuts will affect programs supported by every member of this House. When Americans begin to understand what is being reduced, we will all be receiving calls from people asking us to change our minds. We must resist these calls for more spending. We cannot become Europe, where citizens believe that government can do everything. We cannot let the United States become another Greece, or another Ireland, or another Portugal, faced with fiscal collapse. We have to make the decision now. These cuts will seem harsh, but we cannot avoid them. We cannot settle for half measures in the hope that in 5 or 10 years we will stop adding to this terrible federal debt. This is just the down payment. We need to begin entitlement reform to really solve our fiscal problems. But we must start now, and we must make it here and now. I thank the Speaker.
Gentleman from Washington.
I yield 3 minutes to Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who is the new ranking member on Health and Human Services Appropriations Subcommittee and was former chairman and ranking on agriculture.
Gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Connecticut.
I rise in opposition to this continuing resolution. Americans want us to work together to address their top priority, creating jobs, fostering economic recovery, and unfortunately the majority's priorities are deeply out of touch with those of the country. Democrats are committed to reducing the deficit, and we believe, as taxpayers do, that we should start by ending tax subsidies and special interest waste. We should be slashing oil companies' subsidies first. We must make programs accountable, end the ones that do not work, and we can no longer afford to continue the tax breaks for the top 2% of the country. Republicans are in a reckless rush to slash without regard to the impact on our economy, the businesses who create jobs, or the middle class and working families who are being responsible, doing the best for their families, and educating for the future. They are hitting ordinary, hard-working families with children, our young people trying to get an education, and the elderly. That is their starting point. Under their budget, every student in America receiving a Pell Grant, close to 9 million people, will see their aid slashed by almost $850 a year. 1.3 million students will lose their supplemental education opportunity grants and thus the ability to pay for college. Their plan cuts more than 200,000 kids out of Head Start, kids who will forever lose the opportunity for an early childhood education. They cut aid to school districts and special education. They will cut 55,000 Head Start teachers and close down 16,000 Head Start classrooms. As with education, so too with jobs. In the midst of a recession and a tough labor market, training and employment services, proven-to-work programs are cut now by $5 billion. That means 8.4 million job seekers, flesh and blood human beings, could lose access to this aid completely. In these tough economic times, it's our low-income seniors who are the most vulnerable. This budget eliminates at least 10 million new meals delivered to the homebound elderly, cuts fuel assistance for them as well. It will force seniors to either go hungry or move into nursing homes, and others to have to choose whether to eat or to stay warm. The challenge is not whether we address the deficit and spending or not. The question is, where do we start to cut? Do we start with slashing ineffective programs and special interest waste, like $40 billion in oil company subsidies, or do we start cutting those that help the middle class, our businesses, and working families with children and seniors? Our job is to get this budget back to common sense, to create jobs, to get this economy running again for the people of this nation. This continuing resolution offered by the Republicans will do neither. Yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Yield 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman, to the chairman of the Labor HHS Subcommittee on Appropriations, gentleman from Montana, Mr. Reberg.
Gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentleman from Montana.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Members of this body, I have an obligation as chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health and Human Services and Education to tell you the simple truth. We're bleeding cash, piling up liabilities, and trying to postpone the day of reckoning, and as a result, America is in a financial freefall. In 4 quick years, Congress made what was a spending problem into a spending crisis. We on this side of the aisle wanted to create jobs. You wasted time on a health care reform bill that did not reform health care. While we wanted to build an economy, you wasted time building government. Unfortunately, many in Washington, D.C., especially on Capitol Hill, are in denial. My colleagues, it's time to stop pretending that the well of wealth in this country is bottomless. We must address spending now, or it will be worse next year. 2 years ago, the Congress passed a stimulus bill totaling nearly $1 trillion. Unfortunately, now we know it did not stimulate. And we know a lot of money went for programs, not necessarily bad programs, but programs that couldn't stimulate the economy. But the biggest travesty of Washington's stimulus spending spree is not that it was a waste of money. It's that the money has been stolen in plain sight from our children and grandchildren. That is what taxation without representation looks like in the 21st century. And it means our nation's fiscal mess is not just a math problem, it's a moral problem. And we owe it to our children to have much better leadership. And that's why I stand before you with a savings of $23 billion in the 3 departments I have responsibility for. No program is immune from waste, so there are no more sacred cows. No law, regulation, or program is perfect or timeless. If something is not working, we'll fix it or eliminate it. In my subcommittee, we want to help people, to help train people, to help educate people. But we've learned repeatedly that simply throwing more and more money at well-intentioned programs does not necessarily work. Those who want to spend money have the burden of proof, and with the debt crisis we face, that burden is a heavy one. Those seeking funding have to prove that the programs are working. Show us the results. Show us that the benefits outweigh the costs. Show us that government can do a better job with this money than the private sector. This continuing resolution is a change in direction away from looking to bigger government solutions to empowering individuals and small businesses to create jobs and grow this economy. Anyone who relies on federal funding has a patriotic duty to look for ways to get by on less for the sake of our country's future today and tomorrow. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yield back the remainder of his time. Gentleman from Washington.
I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished former chairman and now ranking member of the THUD Appropriations Subcommittee, Mr. Olver from Massachusetts. 3 minutes.
The gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts.
Or reserve. Give him 3 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the gentleman for yielding time. Mr. Chairman, this continuing resolution clearly endangers the fragile recovery of America's economy. While I have the greatest respect for Chairman Latham, he has been saddled with an irrational task of cutting $15.5 billion, a 23% cut from the transportation and housing title of the resolution. I cannot fathom how the new majority, which proclaims to be all about jobs, could, as their first piece of business, impose deep cuts upon the very programs that have the greatest potential for creating jobs and that provide the necessary foundation for a strong economic recovery. Specifically, the continuing resolution cuts funding for the Community Development Block Grants Program by more than 60%, to by far the lowest level since the program was created in 1975 under a Republican president, President Gerald Ford. As a result, over 1,200 cities and towns across all 50 states will be forced to shelve local economic development projects in every one of our districts, and the associated 45,000 jobs will be lost. In addition, the bill proposes to cut over $7 billion in transportation infrastructure investments. This includes reductions that force Amtrak to lay off roughly 1,500 employees and will halt work on 76 Tiger grants already announced in 40 states and cancel the associated 25,000 construction jobs. Finally, as we consider the ongoing housing needs of our most vulnerable citizens, this bill reduces by a 75% cut by $760 million the program serving elderly and disabled persons, handcuffing our ability to keep up with the support required to meet the needs of our expanding and aging senior population. In addition, the $75 million cut to our Veterans Supportive Housing VASH program is frankly appalling. Just last week, HUD released a report indicating that more than 76,000 veterans are homeless on any given night, and that vets are 50% more likely to be homeless. Yet the majority's bill turns its back on our homeless vets, leaving them literally out in the cold. Mr. Chairman, while I'm glad this bill does not meet the Republican majority's pledge to cut $100 billion in non-security spending, it will still have a dramatic negative impact on American families while making no more than a ripple in the ocean of additional national debt caused by the massive tax cuts adopted during the Bush administration at the very time that America has engaged in $2 trillion wars in the Islamic world. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Yield 1 minute, Mr. Chairman, to the chairman of the Transportation and HUD Subcommittee on Appropriations, gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Latham.
Gentleman yields 1 minute to the gentleman from Iowa.
I thank the gentleman from Kentucky. And Mr. Speaker, I just maybe respond a little bit to what the gentleman from Massachusetts just said. The fact of the matter is there will not be a veteran, a homeless vet, that will not get a voucher. The fact of the matter is there are 30,000 vouchers available today. Only 19,000 of those have been used. There are 11,000 vouchers waiting, and the problem basically is with the department, with HUD and VA, as far as trying to write the rules to actually get these people the vouchers they need. So any kind of characterization that we're putting vets out in the cold is absolutely untrue. You can have your opinion, but the facts speak for themselves. Now also, we are not reducing any Section 8 vouchers. They will remain. No one is going to be put out anywhere. We maintain those programs for those folks, and to characterize it any way differently simply is not factual. So the fact of the matter is, sir.
Myself a minute. And
gentleman from Washington yields himself 1 minute.
And I would say to the gentleman, here's the problem. There are, I think, about 29,000 of these vouchers out there now, and you're correct. Some of them haven't been able to find a place to live yet. The Secretary Shinseki, and who I talked to personally about this, and Secretary Donovan have said there are 60,000 of these veterans who need this voucher. And so there's 30,000 more that we need to do. And I was shocked when I saw on the list of terminations that your side decided to terminate this program. No, I hope you reconsider that. Yes, of course I yield.
It simply is not true, and you know that. There are 11,000 vouchers sitting there unused today. There are 19,000 have been issued. So the gentleman knows that we are not cutting. Those 11,000 are still available under this bill, and we're going to review this as we go through for the next fiscal year, 2012.
That's what I was going to ask the gentleman, and I'd like to work with you on this.
Absolutely.
And if that's the gentleman's intent, and then we will work together and try to get the job done.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you. I now yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from New York, the former chairman and now the ranking member of the Financial Services Subcommittee, Mr. Serrano.
The gentleman yields to the gentleman from New York 3 minutes. Seeing no objection.
The continuing resolution that we are voting on today is irresponsible and extreme. We all recognize that we should take reasonable steps to address our deficit. However, what we're voting on today makes cuts that will harm our students, our public safety, our health, and our environment. When I served as chair of the Financial Services Subcommittee, I worked hard to make sure that we protected the consumer, the investor, and the taxpayer. The agencies funded by this subcommittee ensure that Americans can have confidence in the products that they use and the security of their investments. The CR that we are considering today, with its cuts to the IRS and the Securities Exchange Commission, fails to provide sufficient resources to meet these challenges. IRS funding will be cut by $600 million, and this will have an immediate impact on taxpayer services as we approach the busy tax season. The IRS will be forced to cut as many as 4,100 employees, lost jobs, mainly enforcement agents, and this will harm the ability of the IRS to find tax cheaters. It is important to remember that if we reduce the government's ability to collect taxes, this will actually increase our deficit, since enforcement resources have a $7 to 1 return on investment. The Securities and Exchange Commission will see a $41 million reduction from last year, which will prevent it from hiring the staff it needs to carry out the critical new Dodd-Frank financial oversight functions that it has been given. This will mean that hedge funds, credit rating agencies, and broker-dealers will continue to operate without regulation, adding to an increased risk of another fiscal meltdown. As chair of this subcommittee, I also worked hard to make sure that capital and other assistance went to small businesses and low-income communities. A key part of this was making sure that the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund had the resources it needed to support financial institutions making investments in disadvantaged communities. Under the continuing resolution which we are voting on today, the CDFI fund will get slashed from $246 million last year to just $50 million this year. This will mean that more than 19,000 jobs will not materialize. More than 14,000 affordable housing units will not be built, and more than 3,100 small businesses will not be assisted. I'm particularly distressed that the majority party decided to meddle once again in the District of Columbia's local affairs. We should all be able to agree that D.C. should be left alone to decide how to spend its own locally derived funds. One local program that the majority has decided to ban is the syringe exchange program. The science on this is clear. Giving addicts clean needles does nothing to drive up drug use, but it does do wonders to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. Even if you do not believe the science, you should not meddle in the District of Columbia.
The gentleman's time has expired. A gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 3 minutes to the chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee, gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Aderholt.
Gentleman yields. The gentleman from Alabama, 3 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, as many have said here today, our government has a spending problem, and the American people are demanding that we find a solution. This CR that's before the House today is a step toward finding a solution to that problem. The Homeland Security title of this CR strikes the right balance between funding priority programs that are essential to our nation's security and at the same time keeping our discretionary spending in check. This CR provides a total of $41.5 billion in discretionary funding for the Department of Homeland Security, and this funding is $1 billion, or 2.4% below FY 2010, and $2.1 billion, or 4.8% below the President's FY 2011 request. In contrast to previous annual spending bills, this CR provides funding for the annual cost of disasters from within the existing budget. So rather than relying upon emergency supplementals, the CR responsibly addresses the $1.6 billion shortfall in disaster relief that the President has failed to address in the 2011 budget request. Supporting the cost of security demands truth in budgeting, and we're delivering where the President and OMB have failed. Having said that, the Department of Homeland Security is not immune from physical discipline, and underperforming programs have been significantly cut in this CR that we're debating today. Let me add, by implementing these cuts, we are not choosing between Homeland Security and physical responsibility, but both are serious national security issues, and they must be dealt with immediately. And through a series of tough choices, this CR achieves both. That is precisely why the CR includes sufficient funding to sustain critical operations in the frontline agencies, such as the CBP, Coast Guard, ICE, the TSA, and the Department's Intelligence Office. Mr. Speaker, Homeland Security is far too important to be subject to budget gimmicks and inadequate justifications. The Homeland Security title of this CR responsibly funds programs vital to our nation's security, and that will help them get back on track from our federal budget perspective. I thank the distinguished Appropriations Chairman for yielding this time, and I yield back the balance.
The gentleman yields back the balance of time. Gentleman from Washington.
I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Price, who has been the chairman and now the ranking member of the Homeland Security Subcommittee.
Gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid if there ever were a case of overheated campaign rhetoric overtaking responsible governing, then we're seeing that case here today. Far from continuing to fund the government through to the end of the fiscal year, this measure would dramatically slash the investments in our economic recovery and undermine our national security in the process. I don't know why we even call it a continuing resolution, I guess to avoid a markup in the Appropriations Committee. But it's a brand new appropriations bill, and a very destructive one at that. It's a job killer of all kinds of jobs, but most especially of national security jobs. Let's talk about firefighters. We rely on our firefighters as our preeminent first responders. They arrive at the scene of all types of emergencies. Attempted bombings, security incidents, medical, fire emergencies, all kinds of emergencies. But this bill eliminates the SAFER firefighter staffing program, guaranteeing that thousands of firefighters will lose their jobs this year, according to the Fire Chiefs Association. SAFER has enabled our local communities to avoid firefighter layoffs, to keep their fire departments at full strength, and this Republican continuing resolution would just simply remove this protection. Let's talk Appropriations Bill. We rely on our local police officers not only as first responders, but also as first detectors of homegrown terrorist activity. Yet this bill eliminates the Community Policing Grant Program, the COPS program, guaranteeing that local governments, which are already laying off workers, will have to fire between 1,300 and 3,000 police officers. Now, these job losses could be prevented if we were attempting to govern seriously instead of appeasing the Republican Tea Party base. The best cure for our budget deficit is a recovered economy, not a bill that slashes and burns government services that are critical to our economic competitiveness and to our public safety. So I urge a no vote on this CR, and I suggest that instead of a continuing resolution, we might say that CR stands for continuing the recession, because that's really what this bill would achieve.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Texas, the chairman of the State Foreign Ops Subcommittee on Appropriations, Ms. Granger.
Gentleman yields 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Texas.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. For too long, we have seen unsustainable increases in spending. This bill before us today puts an end to that practice by making unprecedented cuts to the federal budget. As chair of the State Foreign Operations Subcommittee, I know the difficult trade-offs that have to be made to achieve these levels of cuts, but we cannot continue to ignore our skyrocketing deficits and our debt. In the bill before us, we are taking our pledge to cut spending seriously. Since fiscal year 2008, the State Foreign Operations budget has had dramatic increases. This bill begins to rein in the growth of many programs. The State Foreign Operations title of the bill before us is $44.9 billion. This represents a 21% reduction from the President's fiscal year 2011 request, an 8% reduction from the fiscal year 2010 enacted level, and an 18% reduction from the fiscal year 2010 level with supplemental appropriations. Let me be clear, while these are dramatic cuts, I support the goals and objectives of using civilian power to achieve our national security goals. To achieve the level of savings included for the remainder of FY11, reductions were made in areas that, while difficult, preserve important efforts and priorities. For example, the bill before us supports top national security priorities, maintains momentum in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and fully funds the U.S.-Israel Memorandum of Understanding at $3 billion. It continues the fight against illegal drug trafficking in Mexico, Central America, and Colombia. In order to do all of these things in this bill, new activities are paused, many programs are scaled back, and large administrative commitments like climate change are shelved. While these choices were difficult, they must be made in order to preserve our national security priorities. There is a need for continued oversight in our foreign aid, and for that reason I've included language which provides additional oversight for countries like Afghanistan and Lebanon. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Lowy for her dedication to the subcommittee as chair for the last 4 years, and I look forward to continuing to work together. We both agree that members on both sides of the aisle deserve to be heard on the important foreign policy matters that come before our subcommittee. I hope this bill will move forward quickly to ensure important government operations are continued in a manner that is fiscally responsible and meets our foreign policy challenges around the world. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back the balance of her time, and the chair would note that the gentleman from Kentucky has 9 minutes. The gentleman from Washington has 9 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Washington.
I yield to the gentlelady from New York, the former chair of the State and Foreign Operations Subcommittee, now the ranking member, my good friend Nita Lowey, and I yield 2.5 minutes.
The gentleman yields to the gentlelady from New York 2.5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman, our distinguished chair. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I just want to say to the current chair of our committee, we've always worked in a bipartisan way, and that's why I reluctantly rise in opposition to the State and Foreign Operations budget in the CR, but I look forward to continuing to work together. These are irresponsible cuts. These cuts would threaten global security and stability. Despite broad agreement that a three-legged stool of defense, diplomacy, and development is vital to our national security, this bill dramatically weakens diplomacy and development. On a positive note, I'm pleased with the inclusion of $3 billion pursuant to the MOU between the United States and Israel and continued commitments to Egypt and Jordan. However, especially given the ongoing developments in Egypt throughout the region and around the world, the drastic cuts in democratic governance, alternate development options, international financial institutions, conflict mitigation, reconciliation, disaster assistance, and global health would significantly impede our ability to achieve our security objectives. I'm really disappointed with the Republican leadership's partisan approach because, as I mentioned, during my 4 years as chair of the subcommittee, I worked closely with my ranking member, and we did not include divisive social issues in our bills. Yet this CR would reinstate the global gag rule and prohibit funds for the United Nations Population Fund, denying millions of women family planning and basic health services. Finally, while all these measures are brought to the floor, under the guise of fiscal responsibility, in my judgment, they endanger our long-term economic security and fail to create jobs. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill, and I yield back.